Okay, we have a lot of ground to cover here, so let's get going. We'll begin with the headstock. Now the headstock is right down here at the end of the guitar. It's called the headstock because it looks like the top of the guitar, the head, right? Okay, now on the headstock you also have what are called machine heads or tuners. These, when you turn them, increase or decrease the amount of tension on the strings, okay? Now that's important for making your strings either go higher or lower in pitch, okay? The more tension, the higher the pitch, okay? So the strings themselves, you might have some fat ones, some bassy ones at this side, and some thinner ones at this side. So bass strings, treble strings, you have string 1, string 2, string 3, string 4, string 5, string 6. 1 being the thinnest, 6 being the fattest. Now the strings come down the neck. Okay, the neck is made up usually of the same wood as whatever the body here is made out of. This is a lovely PRS McCarty. So it has mahogany body, maple cap, but on the neck here, the fretboard is made out of rosewood. Now it's called the fretboard, that's this dark wood here. It's called the fretwood because it has these metal lines that go across. You see this? So these metal lines are called the frets. Now, so if somebody said to you, I want you to put your first finger on the first fret, on the first string, you'd do this, right? Now that is the gap between this fret and the nut, okay? The nut is here. That guides the strings to the right position on the headstock to go to the correct machine heads, okay? So the nut is there, and that's the first bit of fret wire, but the first fret is actually in that gap between the fret wire and the nut. Heading upwards, you would have first fret, second fret, third fret, fourth fret, so on and so on, okay? So again, if I put my first finger, say, on the 5th fret of the first string, you'd go here. Now that leads me on to the dots, okay? Now the dots are located on the top of the neck. If you see that there, you have these little white dots here. You got one there, you got one here, you got one here, right? Now these dots are a quick glance indicator so that you can see where you are on the fretboard without actually having to look at the fretboard, okay? So if I wanted to go quickly to the 5th fret, I would know that that's my second dot, okay? The 7th fret there would be my third dot, all right? Now hidden underneath of the strings here, if you can see that there, there's a little bit of plastic. Now that plastic covers up the end of what's called the truss rod. Now the truss rod can adjust the concave or convex of the neck, okay? So sometimes you have necks which end up like this, and sometimes you have necks which bow in the middle like this, and this one, for example, you might end up with really high action, especially in the middle of the neck. This one, where it's kind of bowed in the middle like that, you would end up having action that was far too low, and the notes would choke off halfway up the neck. So both of these situations can be fixed. I do not suggest adjusting your own truss rod, okay? Go and get that done by a professional. If you don't know what you're doing with it, it's really, you can over-tighten them, you can break them, you can stop them from working. So take them to a professional, get it done properly, or find out a little bit more about how to make it work for yourself. You usually need an Allen key, that kind of thing. But unless you're sure of what you're doing, leave that one to the professionals. Now moving on. So the body of the guitar is up here. Okay, now this is where all the controls basically are located, and this here, which is called the jack plug. Okay, that's where you plug a cable in which takes you to your amplifier, okay, which takes the sound that is made from the guitar to the amplifier. Now on the body of the guitar, you also have 2 pickups, okay? This one here is called the neck pickup because it's close to the neck, and this one here is called the bridge pickup because it's closer to the bridge. These can also be called treble pickup for here because the sound that this pickup gives when it's selected is brighter, more cutting, where the sound that this one gives, the neck pickup, is more fuller. It's got a lot more low mids in it. It's a little bit more round. It's darker. It's warmer, okay? So treble or bass pickup, or neck or bridge, depending on whichever we want to look at it, okay? Now this here is the pickup selector, okay? Now in the down position here, it's the treble pickup that's selected. In the up position here, then it's the neck or rhythm or bass pickup that's selected. In the middle, it's a combination of both, okay? Now I also have, on this particular guitar, a tone control and a volume control, okay? Now what tone will do is that actually rolls off any really high frequencies, okay? So If I'm playing along and it's on full, that's all the frequencies that are generated by the guitar usually. But if I want it to be a little darker, or if I find that the tone is too cutting or bright, I roll this back and it takes some of that out. Okay? When it's all the way back, you can get kind of like really dark, jazzy kind of sound. Now, the volume does exactly what it says in the tin. When it's off, it's off. The guitar's off. When it's all the way up, the guitar's all the way up. It's as loud as it can go. The volume control can be used to also control the amount of gain from a good amplifier or a good modeling unit. If you aren't pushing that unit, i.e. you aren't putting the full amount of volume through it, if you roll it back slightly, what will happen is you'll get less gain. Okay, now gain is distortion. You know, that kind of nice rock and roll sound. If you take your volume out, you might not feel at first a big drop in volume, but you will feel a change in the gain structure. Okay, so the gain will drop and the guitar will get cleaner. As you pull it up, it'll get, more and more rock and roll. Okay, now if we take a look at the bridge here, which is down here. Now, this particular guitar has what's called a wraparound bridge, okay, which means that the strings go through from this side and wrap round the bridge and come back the other way in order to stretch them out this way. Okay, so they come down and then come back round, so it wraps around. Traditional bridges like this, like the Les Paul over there, has a two-piece, a tailpiece, which you just go that way and go over that way. Now, this particular guitar doesn't really have saddles. It just has these slots for the strings to fit in, and that means that they're not adjustable, but I quite like that. This guitar sounds really good. It's very resonant, okay? But you might have adjustable saddles, which your strings fit over, again, very much like the Les Paul or a Stratocaster, and those guitars can be really readily adjusted for what's called intonation. If you don't have even intonation across the neck, once you get past the 12th fret, even though you're in tune down here, you might feel like you're out of tune above the 12th fret, okay? But that's what intonation is. It can be very fiddly to adjust, especially if you have something like a Floyd Rose or something like that. But there's lots of tutorials to look at if you want to figure out how that works. So my strap here is attached here and at the back of the guitar here. You see that? On what are called strap locks, but normal strap buttons work fine. You just need to be a little bit more careful about letting it swing. If you're stood on stage, keep hold of your guitar because one of them might pop off. These are the Dunlop strap locks, and they work really well. One last thing I wanted to mention was your pick. Now, it doesn't necessarily matter what pick or what size you have, and a lot of this is personal choice as well, how you've developed your own technique and stuff over the years. But I like to hold my pick this way, okay? Now, what I do is I point my finger like this, my picking finger like this, and I bend my finger like that, and then I put my pick with the point that I'm going to use at a right angle to my nail there, if you can see that, okay? And then I use my thumb, the knuckle of my thumb, to come over the top, and then I'm left with a very small amount of the pick sticking out. Now, the reason for that is twofold, okay? One, I can get my hand very close to the strings. You see that? Don't be afraid to touch those strings. Get them close in like that. And it means that you can dampen very nicely. And two, it gives me good economy of movement as well. Like if I'm doing something quick or anything like that, then I can do it quickly because I'm not having to move my hand so far. If I had this much pick sticking out and I was all the way out here, it'd be much, much more difficult, okay? So, nice, tight grip, not a lot of pick sticking out, just a tiny little bit, and away you go. So that concludes my anatomy of the guitar, the surface controls and the features of the guitar. I mean, there's a lot more other things that you could go into depth with, but some of these things passed me by when I was first starting, and it made things difficult. So hopefully that can get rid of some of those things for you and make it a little easier. We'll use some of these features going forward in the lessons that we've got planned. So stick with us, and hopefully we'll see you again in another video. Cheers.